The Rebbe soll gesund sein began the Farbrengen this afternoon that it's customary that every Farbrengen we usually bring out the relationship that it has to the Kriyas HaTorah of that Shabbos. Even though the Torah is one entire Torah, from the very first letter to the last letter, nonetheless we see that the Torah is divided into Parshias, and every week we read a different Sedra, to the extent that every week is called on the name of the Parsha that is read on that Shabbos, and that is the name the entire week carries from the Sunday until Shabbos. Furthermore, Shabbos brings out the Shaykhis to the entire Sedra, because on that day we read the entire Parsha. During the week, primarily, every day has a Shaykhis to the Parsha of that day. However, Shabbos, which Shabbos really includes within it the entire week, as we see in Chazarah, we find that there was a habit by various Tanoim that during the entire week, starting from Sunday, whenever they would find something nice, they would save it, they would preserve it for Shabbos. And as we see in the reading of the Parsha, that even though every Parsha is read separately, with making a bracha at the beginning of each Parsha, and a bracha at the end of each Parsha, and after the bracha there is a response of Amen, which Amen abbreviates, Keil Melech Ne'eman. However, each Parsha relates to the other Parsha, and to the extent that one Parsha is not complete without the other Parsha. For example, in our Parsha, in the beginning, in Parsha Shelach, the beginning of the Sedra discusses about the sending of the Meraglim. However, if we will not continue into the further Parshas after Sheni, we will not know what was the outcome of the entire union of the Meraglim. Talking about the union of Kriyas HaTorah, it is appropriate to stress and to alert everyone about the importance of Kriyas HaTorah. The same when we're talking about the end of our Sedra. What is the end of Parsha Shelach? The end of Parsha Shelach talks about mitzvah tzitzis. Mitzvah tzitzis is one protistike mitzvah. Nonetheless, it has a shayches to all of Taryag mitzvahs, as Rashi brings, that the equivalent of the word tzitzis is 608, and the equivalent of the word tzitzis is 600, and together with the 8 strings and 5 knots, together with the 8 strings and the 5 knots, it's a total of 613, which means that by looking on tzitzis, it reminds us on all of the mitzvahs. Because mitzvahs darabanan come as an outcome of mitzvahs min haTorah. So when we're talking about looking on tzitzis, it is really reminding us on all mitzvahs. And this is something which is stressed in Rashi. And this is something which is brought to a child's very early attention, when a child is a youngster yet. And the same thing even though we're talking about girls who do not wear tzitzis. Nonetheless, this concept of Schartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem, constantly referring to mitzvahs of the Rebishter, this is something which is brought to their attention as well. So even though, what the Rebbe is bringing out is that even though tzitzis is one of the detailed mitzvahs, nonetheless, this is a prat of mitzvahs, and this prat contains and reminds us on all of the mitzvahs. Same says the Rebbe when we're talking about Birchas HaShachar. The brachas which we recite every morning. Even though we're talking about detailed inyanim, nonetheless, it includes even in Yonam of Torah Shebal Peh. As we conclude, Birchas HaShachar v'Salmei Torah Keneged Kol. Here is an opportune time to bring to our attention how careful we have to be when we recite these brachas, Birchas HaShachar in the morning. There are those that say that it's not of such importance and significance, being it's something which comes before davening, it's not even part of tefillah. So it is not so. When we're talking about Krishma, they say, there, our kavanah, our intentions are important. It's something which is very basic. Talking about Krishma, we're talking about Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael is something which is very important. Shema Yisrael is something which Yidden, at the times of Gzeras Rachman al-Tzon, should never be repeated. Proclaimed loud Shema Yisrael, that even the non-Jews heard them. But we have to know that not only Shema Yisrael is a matter of importance, but even where say Birchas HaShachar has to be said with the proper kavanas and be treated properly and so forth. The contents of this Sedra, the contents of the Sedra of Parshas Shelach, is about Moshe sending the Meraglim to Eretz Yisrael. The same thing, the contents of the Haftarah is also the same. Because as we know, the contents of the Haftarah has to be similar to the contents of the Sedra, which also tells us about the Meraglim which was sent by Yeshua. What is the difference between the Meraglim sent by Moshe and the Meraglim sent by Yeshua? The Meraglim sent by Moshe sent 12 Meraglim, a representative of every Shevet. However, Yeshua only sent 2 Meraglim. So one of the explanations in it is, being that Moshe had already sent 12 Meraglim, so the inyan that 12 Meraglim have to accomplish was already accomplished through the Meraglim of Moshe. All that is needed now is that Yeshua should send his Meraglim. Why Taka did Moshe send 12 Meraglim? The reason why Moshe Rabbeinu sent 12 Meraglim is because, being that the Yidden are divided into 12 Shvatim, every Shevet has his specialties and his inyonim which he requires special attention in. That is why Moshe Rabbeinu has chosen a representative from every Shevet, so he shall care and worry and seek after the matters that are needed for his Shevet in Eretz Yisrael. And being that Shevet Levi did not have a share in Eretz Yisrael, that is why Moshe Rabbeinu did not send a representative from Shevet Levi. Being that Moshe Rabbeinu was the Raya Mehemne of all Yidden, and he was well aware of all their needs and all the possibilities of the Meraglim, and he was aware that the Meraglim are suitable to fulfill their mission, to the extent that actually their mission was fulfilled, as we see that even Yeshua and Kalev, who were part of the Meraglim, did not separate themselves from the Meraglim, but they went with them, they went along with them, though there was difference of opinion between them. Furthermore, when they gave the report, the Meraglim and Yeshua v'Kalev, it was all said in one continuation, to the extent that initially Yeshua v'Kalev and the rest of the Meraglim gave an equal opinion. They all agreed that Toiva ha'aretz miyoit. However, the Meraglim came to a conclusion that Lo Nucha La Salam. And the reason for it is, being that the sending of the Meraglim was, as Rashi tells us, that the Rebishter told Moshe, Shlach lecha ledaitecha, he left it up to the opinion of Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore, they thought that the entire conquering of Eretz Yisrael will be based on daita, will be based on the way it comes, mitzad man, mitzad a person. Therefore, they claimed that it would be impossible. However, Yeshua and Kalev viewed how the Rebishter's power is going to come into it, and then it will definitely be possible. However, there was no need for Yeshua to again send 12 Meraglim, because this inyan was already accomplished. What was a need for was to send the 2 Meraglim which Yeshua did send. Furthermore, question arises, being that Moshe Rabbeinu sent emissaries from each and every Shevet, and every Shevet went to worry and care and provide the needs of his Shevet. If so, then every Shevet, the representative of every Shevet, should have went only to the territory which was assigned for his Shevet, and not all over Eretz Yisrael. Says the Rebbe, it was already known in advance which part will belong to each and every Shevet, because this is already hinted in the brachas which Yankov Avinu gave before he passed away. So if so, the question arises, why was there a need for the emissary of every Shevet to tour all of Eretz Yisrael? And when we're talking about this inyan of conquering Eretz Yisrael, it's not only conquering Eretz Yisrael and Gashmias, because first of all, the inyan of Gashmias of Eretz Yisrael also has a shaychus to each and every Jew. Because every Jew, every Yid has his share in Eretz Yisrael, and that is why the halacha is that every Yid can make a pruzbul, because a pruzbul can be made only by a person who has a share, has Daled Amis in Eretz Yisrael. So we right away see that every Jew has a share in Eretz Yisrael. But furthermore, there's the famous expression from the Tzemach Tzedek, Machdo Eretz Yisrael. So there's the Avodah Ruchnis which each and every Yid has to create a spiritual Eretz Yisrael wherever he is. First of all, we have to know that as far as Eretz Yisrael, and especially after this long and bitter Golus, which we went through, we have to know that Eretz Yisrael belongs only to Yid, and not one bit of territory should be given up to Goyim, because each and every drop of space, bit of land which is owned by Yidden, adds to the security of Yidden, and therefore it should not be given up under any circumstances. And how much more so when we're talking about Yerushalayim, which Yerushalayim is the capital of the entire Eretz Yisrael. When we're talking about the Avodah of the Shvatim and Ruchnias, and we're talking about capturing Eretz Yisrael in the spiritual sense of Machda Eretz Yisrael, so we see each and every Shevet excelled in a different inyan. For example, it is known that Yisachar excelled in learning Torah, Zvulun excelled as a merchant and contributing tzedakah. And as we know the greatness of tzedakah, especially that there are Yidden that give tzedakah 1 cent or 5 cents for each and every Yid that is in existence. The Rebbe says, Yilbu kamaisam b'Yisrael, let there be more Jews like them that should give tzedakah in such a format. So what we are saying is, it's not enough that every Yid does the avodah of his shevet, but what it is called for is that there should be a hiskalulus to include himself and to become united with the avodah of other shvatim. And with this we can understand why was it that when the Meraglim was sent, they not only went to tour the land which will be given to their shevet, but they also toured the entire Eretz Yisrael, because this is emphasizing on the involvement and unity which is being created between one shevet and another. How each and every one is getting involved not only in his avodah, but in the avodah of another shevet as well. And by us doing this avodah, this will lead. We will get back to Beis Hamikdash, and then all Yidden will come together. And the Beis Hamikdash, we will all be able to bring korbanos. That's the whole thing in the Beis Hamikdash. And Beis Hamikdash will bring korbanos. And just like a single person, when he goes out of jail, when he goes out of a Beis Asurim, he's obligated to bring a korban Torah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How much more so is it when all Yidden will go out of Golus, which this Golus is also like a prison to all Yidden. Everyone will be obligated to bring a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we will all go together to Eretz Yisrael, and everybody will be besimcha, because then we will have the real shleimus of simcha. Now, bisman hagolos, it is prohibited for a person to fill his mouth with laughter, except for a simchas chassan v'kala or a simchas Torah. However, we're not waiting until simchas Torah, because we're going to have the Geula, and Mashiach is going to come, and then we will be in the highest level of simcha, and we will all together go to Eretz HaKodesh and to Yerushalayim. Rabbi continued. This is also what Rashi says. As mentioned earlier, on the pasuk Shelach lecha. So Rashi comments that the Rebbe told Moshe Rabbeinu, it's up to you to send the Meraglim. I am not commanding you what to do. If you want to send. And as we know what Rashi tells us, that at the time when Moshe Rabbeinu chose the Meraglim, Rashi tells us, at that time they were all kosher Yidden. Says the Rebbe, kosher abbreviates Kemoitzei sholol rov. Sholol is what we, in Yiddish it's called the roib. Usually when we go into a war and the riches and the wealth which we come back with from a war is called sholol. So koshev abbreviates like one finds a large sholol. The Rebbe brings out what does this mean in Ruchnius. It means that we take inyanim which were until now by the enemy, spiritually, and we convert it to mitzvahs. To convert finsternis, darkness into illumination. Averes which were initially done as intended Averes are converted into mitzvahs. And this is what Moshe Rabbeinu accomplished with the sending of his Meraglim. And the Avodah was L'daitecha. And not only in matters which have a shaykhs to them, as we discussed earlier, but being that every Yid, before we start davening in the morning, we accept upon ourselves Avas Yisrael, Arini Mekabel Alai Mitzvah Haseichel V'Hafta L'Riyacha Kamecha. So that is why it's not enough that he's helping himself and helping the people from his shevet, but he's also reaching out and helping people from another shevet as well. Because he will help these other Yidden conquering their spiritual Eretz Yisrael. Seeing to it that another Yid will increase in giving tzedakah, and another Yid will increase in doing other good things. And by all of this will help to take us out, take us all out of goals. And we're talking about Shelach Lecha, L'daitecha. The das of whom? The das of Moshe Rabbeinu. And the das of Moshe Rabbeinu is constantly growing and expanding. As Chazal tell us, Talmidei Chachamim never have any rest, not in this world, not in the world to come. So Memela by Moshe Rabbeinu, it is the das of Moshe Rabbeinu that is also constantly growing. And this also has to do with Lasid Lovely. As the Rambam writes, at the end of his Sefer, what will be the entire goal of the world when Mashiach will come? La das es Hashem. As the Rambam brings the pasuk, Kimala Oretz Deyas Hashem. Wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And these are also the opening words of the Rambam. Yisoida, is the pillars, and the pillar, Yisoida, Yisoides. For Amud HaChochmas, it's the foundation of foundations, the pillar of wisdom. To know, Leda, again das, Sheyesh Shamatz Rishon. This is the whole idea of Rambam. Rambam abbreviates Revois Moifsei Be'eretz Mitzrayim, that even in the land of Mitzrayim, which is symbolic to Golis, even there, the idea of the Rambam is to bring Kedusha into there as well. And now we have a taste of this das. Taste of this das we have through learning Chassidus. Chassidus Chabad particularly. And Rebbe mentioned that recently new Ma'amorim of the Rebbe, of the Mitteler Rebbe were printed. And it's in the process of preparing more volumes of Chassidus from the Mitteler Rebbe. And all of this will lead to an increase in deeper das and more das in the Avodah of L'daitecha that is within each and every Yid. Because each and every Yid, as we know, has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. So he's activating his level of das until we will reach the ultimate peak of das, which that will be at the time of Geula. Agutavach.